Hello everyone, welcome to our MIC Student Experience virtual sessions. My name is Patrick Cosgrove and I'm a Student Recruitment Officer here at Mary Emeka College. So in this session we'll be talking to a number of current and past students on the Bachelor of Arts degree. They'll be representing subjects such as English Language and Literature, Geography and Gaeilge or Irish. So what I might do, first of all, is just tell you if you want to ask any questions during the course of this session, you can use the chat function or the Q&A function. Just type in your question and I can put it to our three guests towards the end of the session. So today we're joined by Ian, who's representing English, Anya, who's representing Geography, and Corey, who's representing Gaeilge. So I might just get them all to maybe briefly introduce themselves first. So we might start off with you, Corey, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Corey and I'm after finishing the third year in the BA and I have Gaeilge and music as my two subjects and I live in Limerick.
That's great, thanks Corey. Anya, if you want to just introduce yourself.
Yeah, hiya, my name's Anya. I just finished my final year in English and Geography and I am currently living in Limerick also.
Good stuff. And finally then Ian.
Hiya, I'm Ian. I did English and History as my undergraduate subjects with TEFL and I'm living in Limerick as well.
Okay, good stuff. So we have a nice mix. We've current students, we've people also who are graduates of the Bachelor of Arts program as well there. So maybe just to start off, I might start off with you, Corey. I suppose maybe just if you want to just give us a little bit of a general background about why you choose the Bachelor of Arts, Corey, and I suppose in particular, seeing as you're representing Gaeilge today, maybe why Irish was a subject you decided to pick and take to degree level.
Yeah, so I suppose for myself, the whole way through secondary school, it was always teaching. That was kind of the end goal for me, and teaching with Irish and music. So the BA was kind of my option. It was my first choice in my CAO. So I went straight in and had Irish and music straight away picked. Irish was always a subject that I liked. It was a subject I was good at. And I found that it was my Irish teacher that I kind of admired going into school and things like that. So that really contributed to it. And I wanted to be that person for other students so that they would have the same kind of love for Irish and love for their language. So that's kind of why I wanted to choose it. I knew as well that Mary I, especially with it kind of having a huge kind of teaching college kind of I suppose reputation, that there was a huge emphasis on Irish throughout the campus. Obviously anyone that does primary school teaching has to have Irish as well, so there is a huge, it was something that I really liked when I went into college, that I knew the majority of people in the college spoke Irish as well. And there's often times when you're going through the halls and you might see two lecturers chatting to each other, or a lecturer on her own chatting on the phone, and it'll all be through Irish and things like that. Gives me kind of a spring in my step throughout the day. So that was really one of the main reasons I chose Mary I for Irish, and why I chose Irish as one of my subjects as well.
Yeah, great, good stuff. And Corey, I suppose for maybe a prospective student now, or someone that's just done their leaving cert and they have their CEO form filled out, you know, if they're doing the Bachelor of Arts next year, like some students often are worried that their standard of Irish mightn't be good enough, or, you know, they might be a bit anxious about things like that. Would you have any advice for them, you know, if you were taking Irish in first year, about maybe not to be put off by things like that, maybe?
Yeah, so I suppose basically when you go in first year, really in the grammar classes, they do kind of start from a reasonably low level. So I wouldn't be too nervous anyway in terms of grammar is something a lot of people struggle with in Irish, but they really do help you along, especially in the tutorial classes. They're kind of all based on grammar. And then in terms of lectures and things like that, it can be a bit daunting when you go straight in and everything is done through Irish, but it's something that kind of immersion is the first way kind of to learn a language, so it's really handy once you get used to it. And they're not going, I mean, they know you're only after starting, so they're not going to be too hard on you either. If you need to ask questions, they're more than welcome, or they're more than happy to answer them for you. Something I find as well really helpful if people are that bit nervous, and it's a tip that I share with everyone, is during the summer, if you have that bit of spare time, if you get children's books that are translated into Irish, maybe a children's story that you know well, and read through the book in Irish. There's loads of them. You can get most of the Roald Dahl books in Irish, the Harry Potter. I think the first Harry Potter book is translated into Irish. It's just a really useful tool, and you can read through it and just translate the different vocab. And it's something that I found really helped my vocab. I did it the summer before I went into college, and I actually found I was a little bit ahead from other people when I went in, and that was a huge reason why. So that's a tip I always share with people. But in general, I wouldn't stress about it. If you're after doing higher level Irish for your Leaving Cert, that's the standard they expect when you go in. So I wouldn't stress at all.
Thanks, Gaeilge. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant tip. I didn't realise that Roald Dahl and Harry Potter are now translated into Irish, and I suppose you can see something. If you're reading something like that, it would help you and maybe bring on your standard in the language. I might pass over to Anya next. Anya, you might tell us, I suppose, how you came to the Bachelor of Arts, and I suppose why geography. What was it that interested you about the subject?
Yeah, so when I was in secondary school, I definitely decided that I wanted to become a teacher. Geography and English was two that I was really interested in, especially geography. You have to do a project, and from there I was really interested in the practical side of geography, so the physical geography. However, on my placement, I've actually decided to branch away from teaching. So I did an undergraduate dissertation in the derelict buildings on Limerick City, and I'm looking at now doing a master's on that project. So completely have swerved away from teaching, but definitely interested in geography, and that's where the interest came from.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the great thing about the Bachelor of Arts at IC, is that you're not kind of cornered into any one career path, or, you know, even if you came in with the idea of teaching, you've said yourself you're going a completely different area now. At least you have that opportunity to explore and to think about possible future careers. Just in relation to geography, Anya, you know, if you didn't maybe do geography for your Leaving Cert, would that be a big deal then, or an issue, or what advice would you have to someone who's maybe thinking of taking it as a subject in first year arts if they hadn't done it in their Leaving Cert?
So it kind of starts off at a basic level. So I know for your junior cert you do geography. So with that level of geography, you'd be kind of comfortable enough having a good knowledge. The lecturers are really helpful, and if you have any questions, they're more than happy to be there to answer them. But yeah, they start from kind of the start, and there's different modules, so you can go off into the human side of geography or the physical side of geography. In first year, there's a few modules, so there's a wide range of them, so that's really good.
Yeah, that's some good advice there, Anya. We might move to Ian next. And Ian, I suppose you're in a unique position in that you're not only a graduate of the Bachelor of Arts, but you're also now working in the college as well. I suppose what drew you to the arts degree in Mary Immaculate College in the first place, Ian, and I suppose why English language and literature? What was it that piqued your interest?
I suppose I'm kind of like a mix of Corey and Anya there. I came in with the kind of intention of going maybe primary teaching. I had a love of English and I liked English in school, and I had a good teacher, and it kind of, I suppose, spurred me on to go that route. But then when I came here, I started studying English, got involved in all the modules, and kind of got sucked into it really, and ended up kind of like on it in. I had planned on going teaching, and then got sucked off into the kind of the master's area, that I wasn't really pigeonholed. I suppose that's the beauty of it as well. You're not really pigeonholed into doing something that you might not want to do. There's always options, and it's always open. So I never intended on doing a master's in English, ended up in a master's in English, and then ultimately ended up doing a PhD in English as well. So when I first stepped in the door, my plans have completely changed compared to what they are now, you know. So it was always very open, and again, studying English kind of gave me the skills and the tools to go, and I suppose the confidence as well to go that route as well, you know.
Yeah, and I suppose you have that kind of, I suppose, unique experience in that you can draw on there. I suppose for some people maybe maybe they might have it in their head that English is just about poetry, or that it's just it's whatever they might think, Hamlet from the Leaving Cert or whatever it is they studied. Like, obviously it's a bit broader than that, isn't it? Or what was your own experience of what you studied over the 4 years?
Oh yeah, it's definitely much broader than that. I think the perception of English can be, you read a book and write about it, or you read a poem and write about it, and that's it. But it's much broader than that. As part of the English degree, I suppose you'll be studying things like literary and cultural theory. When you come into first year, you'll be studying someone who you mightn't even think, but like the Paul Howard Rossa Cara Kelly series, which we would associate with satire and fiction. And you'll be studying a book like that alongside James Joyce, The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. So kind of what we would kind of think of in inverted commas high literature with contemporary literature, and you'll be studying stuff right from Shakespeare right up to the present. So like you could be studying someone like Paul Howard, Roddy Doyle, J.D. Salinger, and even for, I suppose, younger people, a lot of younger people are listening to someone podcasts like Blind Boy, the Blind Boy podcast and stuff. And what he uses a lot is literary and cultural theory, and those skills are universal, because I suppose if you think of theory, what it means, if you go back, I'm getting technical now, back to the Greek, it means perspective. And it gives you different angles and perspectives of how we live our lives, how we experience our lives, and it gives you different visions and, I suppose, viewpoints. So studying English isn't necessarily just about throwing yourself into a library and sitting in a corner reading a book. It's about looking at the world differently, and it'll give you the skills that you might want to go teaching with it. But the critical skills and communication skills and the writing skills, they're universal. If you could go off and do a business, postgrad in business, you could go accounting, and all the skills you learn studying English are universal in that sense,
Yeah, I suppose to kind of summarize what you've said there, Ian, I suppose English language and literature is a lot broader and a lot more dynamic maybe than what people's preconceived notions of it might be. I suppose then, just to get back to, I suppose, your own student experience in Mary Immaculate College, I might put this to Corey maybe first, Corey. I suppose, what advice would you give to someone in terms of how to make friends in college? I know a lot of people can find first year a bit daunting, particularly maybe if they might have many friends from secondary school attending the same college.
Yeah, so definitely going into college, it was a bit daunting. I have a twin sister, and we always kind of came as a pair, and she went to UL and I went to Mary I. Now, we weren't too far away, but we were still in two different environments, so it was that bit daunting going in. And I knew a few people from home, so kind of initially you stick to who you know, and then you actually, like, there were guys that I mightn't have known very well and I now know very well. But yeah, definitely one of the main tips I'd have is if you have the chance to join a society or join a club, I'd really take that step. I have a huge interest in music as well, and I didn't join MIDAS until second year, and it's one of my biggest regrets because it's such a way to make friends. But the same can be said as well. The Sean McCodriv in Mary I as well is a huge place where you can use your Irish in an informal setting with friends, and you can just go in. There'll always be people in there, and you just make friends from there. I worked with them for my placement, and the amount of friends I've come out with is just crazy, and it's so nice that we can all speak Irish together in just a natural setting instead of constantly thinking, is this right, is this wrong? Because obviously if you're talking to a lecturer or anything like that, you're going to be panicking. It's natural. But if you're with your friends, no one cares if you make a mistake. So one of the huge tips that I'd have is if you can take that step, and it's putting yourself out of your comfort zone, but go to a meeting with the Common Gaeilge or go to the Sean McCodriv for an hour. Any club or society that you might have an interest in, like, take that step. With the BA, it's so nice because you are with different people constantly when you go from lecture to lecture, but it's one of the things that can be a bit hard as well, because I found with the BAs, they were walking from lecture to lecture together, whereas you might only be with people in Irish for the lecture time, so you have 10 minutes beforehand to speak to each other. But I would definitely speak for all the clubs and societies when I say it's a huge way to make friends, and it's one I'd really, really advise.
Thanks very much, Corey. So I suppose clubs and societies and getting involved would be your main advice. And you did your off-campus placement in Sean McCodriv, Corey, you were saying this year, was it?
Yeah, from January until May. So obviously we were at home, working at home. So it was mainly kind of social media aspect that we were working with. But we had weekly Kirkle Choras on a Wednesday at 6:30, I think it was, and we'd always have that couple of people. I think we had kind of 6 or 7 that would come, and we'd all just kind of chat for about an hour, just ask Gaeilge. We had a couple of competitions for Seachtain na Gaeilge. We had we had a Facebook Live. It was called Gantry na Seachtainna, and we had some trad music being played. So what we can do online, if we could go that far, then I'm really excited to see what we can do in the next semester when we are hopefully back on campus, or whenever we are back. But yeah, it was really, really good placement, and it's something I got a chance to work in an education setting in the first semester. I worked in a Gaeilge school, and then in the second semester I got the chance to kind of work in just a normal working kind of environment, not so much teaching, but you're just working as Gaeilge. So it was lovely, and it's one of kind of the main reasons why I'd really recommend the BA. It's so handy to have that year complete off where you can figure out where your interests lie, and as well just kind of working the whole time in Irish. It did wonders for my language skills. I don't think I ever knew how far I could be in Irish, but definitely working the whole time in Irish with people who had the same level of interest was a huge benefit for me.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. I suppose this year, has been a bit strange for all students in that it's all been online because of obviously COVID-19, and the college were obviously waiting for the government advice and the Department of Education advice, and hopefully we'll be in a position maybe in June of this year to give more firm details about academic delivery next semester. But I suppose we're all hoping we might be able to get back on campus as soon as possible. So I might throw that over to you, Anya, as well. What advice would you have someone who's starting maybe next September about how to make friends and just settle into college life?
Yeah, I definitely found the tutorials really helpful, because the classes are so big. It's really hard to get to know people. So you kind of stick with people you might know or know of. So with the tutorials, they're smaller groups and sometimes they're random, which when you first go in, you're kind of like, oh God, I know no one. But it's actually really good because you get to know people, then you get to hear other people's opinions. And when I was coming in, there was some mature students, so it was good to hear, their different opinions and what they've gone through. And it's really good, I think, to go into the tutorials and try and get involved, which can be daunting, but definitely I think worth it. Also, then being involved with clubs and societies is really good, just to try and mingle with people. I know Mary I Student Union, they do a lot of events. Now, obviously, with COVID and stuff, we can't do that at the moment, but hopefully when we get back on campus, we'll get back to that.
Yeah, that's, I suppose, great point. I suppose to try to do as much as we can online, but I suppose actually meeting people face to face. Might move on to Ian now. You might tell us, I know it's a few years ago now, Ian, but you might kind of you might think back on your own maybe experience of starting college in first year. I suppose a lot of people have found, because the Mary McKenna College campus is so compact and you tend to meet people, on a daily basis, it does, maybe compared to some other third level institutions where the campuses are very big, and you could kind of feel overwhelmed. That kind of did help you, kind of make friends and continue to meet them.
Yeah, exactly. I think the beauty of Mary I is the fact that it's so small and compact. You're a stone's throw away from wherever you need to go, whether it's down to the student union, the lounge, the steps where everybody congregates, or into the canteen. You're no more than 5 minutes away from where you need to go or to meet people. And I think to kind of continue on with Corey and Anya were saying there as well, if you're getting involved in the clubs and societies and meeting people, and just throw yourself into everything, talk to people, and you'll meet so many like-minded people, and there so many diverse people as well. In Mary I, and it's brilliant to just throw yourself in. But yeah, it's been a while now since I was an undergraduate student. Now I think I came there in 2010, so I finished in 2014. But my experiences there were all brilliant. Just get involved in everything, and just get involved in everything. Really would be my advice. Talk to people. Yeah. Yeah,
good advice, Ian. I suppose really just kind of, I suppose I would always advise people to maybe, you know, put yourself out there, take that risk, you know, chat to that person beside you, and just kind of get out of your own comfort zone. Really, I think is what you would all advise people as well. Now, I suppose over the course of your, you know, your Bachelor of Arts degree, I suppose there's often times where people might find their studies challenging, or you have a lot of assignments, or you have different things like that, and you know, maybe it gets a little bit overwhelming sometimes. So I might just get advice. Maybe I might start with Corey first. Maybe you might get some advice, Corey, maybe on how you went about dealing with it. You know, when you found your studies challenging. You know, what's the best way to deal with it, or what advice would you give to someone who's maybe just starting off an arts degree in the college?
Yeah, so I think one of the main, the huge changes when you go into college is that you now have to reference everything you write, which is something that you have absolutely no knowledge of in secondary school. And that can be really daunting then when you go in and come October, November time, you now have to write a 1,500 word essay, but it has to be referenced. And obviously the penalties for not referencing then are so huge. So there's such a kind of shock value, I think. But obviously one of the main advantages of the BA is that you do have the academic writing classes and the IT classes. So they kind of give a really good introduction when you go in, and they talk you through your essay writing and how to reference properly and how to structure your essay. That's a huge help, especially when you know so little about the kind of college writing styles. And as well with IT, they go through Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel in the second semester, and that can be a huge help for people as well if they don't have previous experience with computers or writing things like that. So that's something that I definitely found very helpful when I went in. Because you know you're used to writing essays on paper, but then when it goes over to computers, it's that little bit of difficulty added. So there's definitely a lot of support when it comes to that when you go in, and the academic learning office as well. I think you can go in if you're having issues with writing essays or anything like that, and you can kind of book a meeting with them and they'll sit down with you and talk you through it. So there definitely is a lot of support. And as well, just chatting with each other and kind of brainstorming ideas and saying, okay, well, how did you do this? And obviously anything, especially for Irish, I mean, any of the Irish lecturers that you meet, or even Katrina that's over the Sean McCodrick, they only want people to excel in Irish. They only want people to like Irish. So they're not going to say no if you reach out and help. There's definitely so much support that you can avail of. It's really good.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned, I suppose, particularly in first year, that help that's there in terms of computer skills that you study, and obviously the Academic Learning Centre always on hand to provide you students, you know, with assistance, you know, in terms of your assignments and essay writing and different skills like that. So, you know, I suppose it's great to have that on the Bachelor of Arts and in Mary Immaculate, that, you know, all these supports are there to help students as well. Might go to Anya next. Anya, I suppose what's your own experience, Anya, when you found maybe all those assignments were getting on top of you, or you had a lot of work to do? How did you manage it, or what tips would you have for prospective students?
Yeah, so in first year I took French as a subject as well, and I was actually really struggling with speaking French. So I just went to my lecturer and I just explained, you know, I was finding it really hard, the oral part of the course. And then she actually put me in contact then with a tutor. So we arranged some meetings and stuff to help improve my speaking French. So I really thought that was helpful. And I know loads more students have definitely done it as well, because it can be really daunting when you're going in asking for help, and you can feel kind of nervous, but they're there and they want you to come if you need help. This year then, because it was online, it was a different workload. So I know the lecturers were still trying to figure things out. So for the first semester, in English particularly, the workload was kind of intense. Just we had a lot of tutorial work as well. And I know our class rep just went to the lecturer and just kind of explained the situation, and he came back with new deadlines and extended them, tried to do the best that he could to, you know, help us manage the course.
Yeah, and I suppose to take on for that point, I suppose a lot of people have found that the lecturers are very approachable in Mary Immaculate. You know, they really are very good to engage and to talk to students, and, you know, give them every opportunity to, you know, whether it's deadlines or, you know, giving them help with assignments as well. Just on to you, Ian. I suppose you might just recollect maybe your own experience or any tips that you have, and even I suppose, Ian, like, you know, was it a big difference coming from secondary school and then going to third level and dealing, you know, interacting with lecturers as opposed to secondary school teachers? Was there a slightly different dynamic, or how did you find it?
Yeah, I think there was a small bit of a different dynamic there, all right, because I think when you're in secondary school, it's very much kind of sit still, put up your hand if you want to go to the toilet or whatever you need to do. But I think college, especially Mary I, it's so much freer. So everybody's so approachable. You can approach any of the lecturers, no matter what the subject is. But in my own subject area in English, you know, you could just, you didn't even have to email people to knock. You could just knock on the door and pop in. And if you are struggling with a I don't know, an essay, or you had your own problems or whatever, you could go in, and there's always help provided. And you could be guided in the right direction no matter what it is. Like Anya was saying there, you know, if you're struggling with an essay, or the classroom is struggling with an essay, things can be extended, deadlines can be extended. Everybody's so approachable, helpful. But yeah, the environment's definitely different, because even Corey was talking about referencing there. And it's such a key, I suppose, a new part of coming into the college experience, and especially when you're writing essays. But the help is always there. You can go to the academic learning unit, but talk to people as well. Talk to your friends, people in your class, talk to your class reps. Everybody's there to help, and even go to the lecturers if you're struggling as well. Drop them an email if you're not comfortable maybe knocking on a door or talking to someone face to face. You can go online these days, you know. So there's hundreds of options out there for your help.
Yeah, that's some very good advice there, Ian. I suppose the next topic we might just discuss is I suppose a lot of people when they're going to college for the first time, you know, for some people they might be moving away from home for the first time. It's their first time maybe living in rented accommodation. For others, for some of you, maybe you commuted to college and it was maybe a slightly different experience. So we might just go to Corey first. Corey, did you live in on-campus accommodation at some stage over your
so for first and second year, for first and second year I lived in city campus, so it's just a short walk away from Mary I. So I really enjoyed my time on campus, and then obviously this year I was at home. So I do think living on campus, for me personally, it was a huge factor in the amount of friends I made. The majority of my close college group, I think, are primary school teachers, and that's because of city campus. But you're definitely around a lot more different people and a lot more different courses, just at a kind of a personal level, in my own experience. And then my two housemates one was a primary school teacher and one was in early childhood, so you kind of get to chat about their experience with their courses and things like that. And I'm quite a home bird, so it was good for me to kind of get out, I think, and to kind of pick up some life skills. But I was lucky that I'm only a short drive away from home anyway, so but I did definitely enjoy my time living in accommodation, and found it really helped kind of my confidence, if nothing else. I really had to step out and make conversation with people. If you're sitting in the kitchen eating your dinner, it can't just be quiet, like, so you have to make conversation, and then you get to know each other and you make really good friends. So I definitely enjoyed my time.
Yeah, and even just to take you up on that, Corey, like, just for a practical side, I suppose, like, you know, how did you find living with housemates? Or, you know, I suppose many of us at that age, when we started college, we were used to Mammy having the dinner maybe ready every evening for us. You know, even practical things like cooking for yourself and doing laundry and all that kind of stuff. Was that a big eye opener? Or, you know, what advice would you have for someone maybe that might be in a similar position come next September?
Yeah, I think I can remember saying, I was working in a shop at the time, and I remember saying to one of my co-workers, I was like, I've just now kind of realised that everything actually has a price. Like, not without sounding like, it was just, like, you forget about little things like buying your groceries and things like that. It all adds up. So you definitely get experience in putting that bit of money aside and not kind of taking everything for granted, that it'll be there when you come home, that the dinner will be on the table. So you really kind of, you learn how to organise how you like to have your day put out. Do you want your dinner straight away when you go home, or this kind of thing? And I think it's handy because it really kind of adds to your life skills and life experiences. Living with housemates, then going in straight away, we just sat down and we chatted for hours, and it was lovely, and it kind of gave you that bit of instant confidence before you started that, okay, I'm okay, I don't have no one, because you always have your housemates. I think it's a closer bond than any other people that you meet because you spend most of your time with them. But I definitely had a great experience at mine, and I know even in the environment of City Campus and in the environment of Corprac and the on-campus accommodations, even if you mightn't gel that well with your housemates, the next house is literally only a stone's throw away, like it's across the hall. And we definitely made friends with a lot of people in our block and around our block. So you're never going to have no one to talk to. There's always someone. I mean, there's loads of people in those accommodations. So, and even if you're living at home, when it was allowed, we could have people stay over, and that gave them that bit of experience as well. If they wanted to stay in and then go home, they could do that as well. And it definitely worked out well for me personally. But I do know a lot of my other friends that commuted and that worked for them. So it's definitely, even if you go in and you find, okay, I hate this, I want to move home, it's not the end of the world. But if it's a thing that you do and you have accommodation booked, I'd definitely be looking forward to it more than dreading it. I was a bit nervous that I'd get on with my housemates or not, but in reality, if you don't, there's other people literally in the next room, so I wouldn't stress about it anyway.
Yeah, just some good tips there, Corey. Might get you to come in then, Anya. I suppose your experience might be a little bit different to Corey's, Anya. You commuted, am I correct, for a lot of your college years? Did you hear that last question, Anya?
Sorry?
Yes, if you can hear. Sorry, I was just saying, Anya, that did you commute for a lot of your college years, that you had a slightly different experience to Corey?
Yeah, so I commuted. I was only living in Castletroy, so I just drove into college from second year. First year I got the bus, but it's good. There's good services, so it's not too bad. I had friends though that lived in Corprac and Ashdown, and I was always able to stay there, which was great for nights out and things like that. So I didn't get to move out, but I stayed out of home a lot. And like what Corey said, you get to meet so many different people from the live-in accommodation, especially not all the time. They're Mary-Iton, sometimes they're from LIT. So it's really good to get to mix with other people.
Yeah, and I suppose that's a great point about Limerick, Anya, is that between UL, LIT and Mary Immaculate, you have a huge student population in the city as well. So I suppose it does make for a great social scene as well. Might come to you, Ian. I think you commuted as well, Ian, but you might speak a little bit, Ian, maybe about, I suppose a lot of people when they come to college first, they might find it difficult to budget their money or different things like that. It might be a whole new experience. How did you find that yourself, and is there any tips you'd have maybe in terms of how to manage your money and kind of plan ahead with your finances when you're starting college?
Yeah, I suppose at the start I was absolutely terrible at budgeting because it was my first time having money. I was out of school and my first job was actually in Dunnes Stores. So I was kind of working there in the evenings and going to college during the day, but I was commuting in as well. So at the start, budgeting, it wasn't the best. I was very much involved in the social aspects of life in Mary. But yeah, it's something you learn over time. You like Corey said, you find out quick enough that everything has a price, and on the first 2 weeks where you think you have loads of money, and then 2 or 3 days later you don't have much money, it kind of opens your eyes and you learn fast enough, But for me, yeah, it was just something that kind of came over time, But by the end of it, I was able to kind of budget and pay my insurance and buy a car and all things like that, So for me, yeah, I think it's just one of those things you learn over time yourself. Some people are good at it, some people aren't. But I think it's something that you learn yourself,
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of a life skill that you kind of are forced to acquire fairly quickly, maybe once you move out from home. And would you have any tips, Corey? Maybe, I suppose, you obviously had to pay for rental accommodation and things like that. Was that a bit daunting initially, maybe, or would you have any budgeting tips for prospective students?
Yeah, in terms of rents for the accommodation and things, I always found City Campus were very good if you sent them an email and said, look, I won't have it for the date that you need it for, but I'll have it for the week after. They were always very accommodating. I was also lucky enough to be one of the recipients of the bursary award when I was in first year with Mary I. So that was obviously a huge help then to anything kind of to do with rent, and obviously your college fees on top of that. So that was a huge help. And in terms of budgeting and things like that, I think it's something, as Ian said, you learn as you go. It's something you can only get better at, I think. And with a lot of people, they really can only get better when they start. And I think I was one of those people. But yeah, it's really just something you figure out how much you actually need in a week. I think there was one week when I had just given up my job and I spent, I think it was €5 for the week. And, so it's something that you really do find you get better at in time. But it's things like washing up liquid or a kitchen roll, and you realise that these are actually, you're not always in a kitchen, they have to be replaced. And so it's things like that, but definitely something you can only get better at as you learn, I think.
Yeah, I suppose the advice for us all, it's always a work in progress, and we can always improve, I think, on managing our finances, I think is the thing to take. Time is nearly up, so we have a question here. I might put this to you, Ian, because it's about English. One of our listeners wants to know, what career choices do you have besides teaching after choosing the subject English?
You have whatever in the world you want to do, really. I've actually spent time abroad. I was teaching English, teaching TEFL. I spent time down in the Canary Islands for a couple of months just before COVID hit. But I know people now who did English with me. They're living in Australia. They do business, they do marketing. People live in Dublin, Galway. Anything and everything. I know people who did in different colleges did Irish and geography, and now they work as representatives in companies, as reps. So just because you study English or an art subject, it gives you the skills of critical thinking, communication. It gives you vital life skills in all areas like that are transferable into other professions. So you're not just limited to teaching. You can do whatever you want in the world, really, because you could do your 4-year undergrad in English and whatever other subject you want to do, and then you can go off and do a 1-year postgrad in another, in a completely different area, if you so wish. So you can use it as a stepping stone as well, to build those skills and then move on into a new area if it's not for you. But you could do anything in the world. I had friends from when I was studying English in absolutely all areas and all aspects of life at the moment, no matter what the area, so you're not limited by just studying English.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. I think that's a really important point. Like the Bachelor of Arts at Mary Mackinac College, I suppose it's just so broad and there's so many different subject choices, and with an arts degree you really have you're not pigeonholed into any one career path, so you do have an awful lot of options available to you after you graduate. Time is caught up with us, so look, I'd just like to thank our guests today, to Corey, Anya and Ian. I think they've been great and have given I suppose a huge amount of information and advice and experience, not only about the Bachelor of Arts and their different subjects, but also about their entire MIC student experience. So I'd like to thank Anya, Ian and Corey very much for coming on today. This session was recorded, so it will be available on our website in the coming days. That's www.mic.ie/CAO. So if you do want to look back over it again, it will be up on the website in the coming days. So that brings this session to a close. Thanks for listening, and thanks again to our guests today for giving and sharing, I suppose, their MIC student experience.